sitting and sit on the chair, that chair.
Just
I can sit on that chair.
only for a few minutes. हनुमान चालीसा। भजलो जी हनुमान, भजलो जी हनुमान, भजलो जी हनुमान, भजलो जी हनुमान। श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज, निज मन मुकुर सुधारी। वरनौ रघुबर विमल यश, जोदायक फलचारी। बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिकै, सुमिरौ पवन कुमार। बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि, हरहु कलेश विकार। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीश तिहु लोक उजागर। कामदूत अतुलित बल धाम, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नाम। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी, कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी। कंचन वरण विराज सुबेशा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केशा। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे, कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे। शंकर सुमन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगवंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनि देखो रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारी, रामचंद्र के काज सवारे। लाय संजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुवीर हरषि उर लाए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बढ़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत सम भाई। सहस वदन तुमरो यश गावे, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद सारद सहित अहीसा। जम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाते, कवि कोविद कहि सकै कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीवहि कीन्हा, राम मिलाय राजपद दीन्हा। तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। युग सहस्र योजन पर भानु, लील्योताहि मधुर फल जानु। प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि, जलधि लांघि गय अचरज नाहि। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हारे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होतन आज्ञा बिन पैसारे। सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी शरणा, तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना। आपन तेज समारो आपै, तीनों लोक भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीरा। संकट से हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों युग प्रताप तुम्हारा, हे प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नवनिधि के दाता, असवर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंत काल रघुवरपुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चित्त न धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई। जो सत बार पाठ करे कोई, छूटे ही बंदी महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, कीजय नाथ हृदय महेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरण, मंगल मूर्ति रूप। राम लखन सीता सहित, हृदय बसहु सुरभूप। श्री राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय जय राम। श्री राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय जय राम। सीताराम 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 सीताराम, सीताराम 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 सीताराम। सीताराम 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 सीताराम, सीताराम 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 सीताराम। श्री राम जय जय राम, श्री राम जय जय राम।
Feels good after chanting this. So, Hanuman Chalisa, which we chanted, a set of 40 verses, said to have been composed by Tulsidas. There is a story connected with this, that Tulsidas wanted to compose this song on Hanuman, and so he began composing it. He began, as is often done, praise of Hanuman and so on. And after he had composed these first few verses, beginning with the praise of Hanuman, Hanuman went into his dream and just said, I'm not happy. Because Hanuman is a devotee of Rama. he wants to hear Rama's glories, not his own glories. And so he said, I'm not happy. And so Hanuman went and destroyed, deleted all those verses. And so, and then next day, Tulsidas begins composing the hymn again. And that's why it begins with Sri Guru Charana Sarojana. Begins with Sri, first remembering Rama and singing about him. And then rest of the verses are about Hanuman. And so there is this temple in Benares called Sankat Mochan Mandir, which is also said to have been started by Tulsidas. And so there, this is morning to evening, continuously, this hymn is being chanted. And people have experienced through this hymn that whenever we feel helpless, we need help, we need divine assistance, we need courage, we need strength, then people have found reciting this hymn they are able to get it. Now, if people want to become too rational about it and say, well, just reciting it, how does courage come? I don't know. All that we know is it happens. So it is at least, it's a tested thing. So it works. And so this is something many devotees do it regularly, and if you like it, and many great singers, Lata Mangeshkar onwards, many of them have sung this. If you're looking for a different tune or a different way to do it, you just go to YouTube and put Hanuman Chalisa and you'll find many versions. In Boston, every day when I do the morning puja, and after the puja is complete, when I'm cleaning up the place and washing the vessels, etc., I just chant this. So it's become a part of my life. We also have the whole complete text and the English translation on the Boston website. But again, you go just Google will have hundreds of versions of it. You can find it anywhere. So since we began with Hanuman, I think it would be good to remember some of the incidents connected with Hanuman's life in Ramayana, because he's a very important part of the Ramayana story. First of all, about Hanuman's birth itself. Hanuman is said to be the son of the wind god. And then the question might come, Pavana Sudha. Pavana is wind. And so there are Hindus historically have been very good at myth making, and so there are lots of versions and different stories about how this happened. So one of the versions of the stories is that Dashrath had was happy, but he didn't have any heir. There was no prince to the throne. And so he did this special sacrifice, a big worship, to invoke the grace of God that he'll be blessed with a child. And so as it was done in those days, there was this big fire sacrifice of Havan, and then the offering, and then through divine grace, that prasad came in the form of a pot with some pious, some sweet offering. And the idea was when his queens will eat from that, and then they will conceive a child, which they hadn't been able to do before. And so he made portions of that and distributed it among his 3 queens. Now the story is that when this was being done, an eagle swooped by there suddenly and took a portion of that sacrificial offering, pious, and then flew away. And there's nothing you can do, so the bird comes and takes it away. Now the bird is up in the sky. And that eagle flew a long distance. And in a deep forest somewhere, there was this great devotee of God. Her name was Anjana. And she was a monkey. And so she was doing these great austerities and meditating on Shiva. And this eagle was flying with that prasada in its mouth. and somehow its beak opened and the prasada fell from the sky. And as it fell, there was this very strong wind going on. So that wind carried that prasada and it just fell in Anjana's lap. And so Anjana, who was meditating on Shiva, hoping through Shiva's grace she would have a son, she saw this and she took this as Shiva's prasad. And then she ate it, and that's how she conceived and Hanuman was born. So in some sense, in some versions of Ramayana, you find it in Indonesia and in Southeast Asia. In some versions, Hanuman is almost like a brother to Rama in this, because they all were born from this same offering. And therefore his mother is called Anjaneya, because his mother was Anjana. And because the wind was the one who carried it to her, is called Pavanasuta. And I'm sure there are many other versions of how these names came. So there are many, many stories connected with Hanuman and Rama. One of the stories that comes to mind is that when Ram and Lakshman, when Sita was kidnapped, and they were searching all over, and then they were passing by that Rishyamukh mountain on which Sugriv had found its own camp, because that was a protected area, and that's where Shabri had asked Ram and Lakshman to go. And Sugriva by then was, you know the story of Sugriva. He is his brother Vali, and they were very close. They loved each other. Vali was the king, very brave. He had, as I was mentioning, I think I didn't mention it here, but he had even defeated Ravana. And in fact, in one conflict between he and Ravana, he had defeated him, didn't kill him, but Ravana fell unconscious, and he just put Ravana's limp body on his thing and went about letting the world know how great a conqueror he was. So that was a characteristic in Vali's life. Extremely brave, very strong, but also a little bit of a show-off. Very egoistic, wants everyone to know how great he is. And then there is the story about how there is this one demon called Mayavi comes and challenges Vali to a fight. And the story goes that he comes and challenges him in the evening, because apparently the strength, the monkey's strength in the evening becomes less than in the evening than during daytime. So that demon is hoping to defeat Vali. And so others in the family challenge Vali and tell Vali, don't go out, it's a ruse. He just wants to become victorious against you. But Vali is so confident, he doesn't care. He starts chasing after him, and then that demon starts running. He goes inside the cave and hides there. Now it's a deep cave. And so Vali and then Sugriv, his brother, accompanies him. And so Vali tells Sugriva that you stand at the entrance to that cave just to guard that these demons, other soldiers don't go, so that I can go and fight with them. So Sugriva stands as the guard at that cave entrance, and Vali goes inside. For a long time, nothing, nobody knows what happened to them. And after a few days, and Sugriva is wondering, it's like, put yourself in Sugriva's position. Your brother is inside, fighting a fierce demon, no contact with him. You don't know, and your brother has asked you to be at the gate. Don't go inside. So he's being obedient to Vali, but also worried about his brother. And then after a few days, blood starts coming out of that cave. Streams of blood. And so Sugriva thinks, as expected, because it's evening, monkeys don't have enough strength in the dark. I don't know whether that's medically true, but that's what was the belief in those days. And so Sugriva was afraid. Again, the Sugriva is known for his being a coward in some ways, in many different ways. And so here he is afraid that, oh, my brother is dead now, and this demon who killed him will come out now and kill me. And then not just kill me, but this other kingdom, everyone is at risk. So what he does is he closes the door to that cave with a big rock. And then he's heartbroken, devastated, his brother is dead. And he comes back, and then people are in shock. And then they say, there has to be some successor. And so his other people then who force Sugriva, you are his brother, you should ascend the throne. So then he's made a king. As it turns out, it was not, it was actually the Vali head king, that blood was actually of that demon. And so when Vali comes back and he finds this door to the cave is closed. Now he's strong enough, so he is able to push aside that rock, come back and find that his brother has become a king. He's furious. It's like, I asked you to protect me, just stand there, and now you have tried to even prevent me from coming out, and now you have become the king. So he has, and then as soon as Vali, this Sugriva sees his brother is furious, of course, being characteristic of Sugriva, the first thing he does is runs away. He knows he stands no chance against his brother. And he tries to tell him, he's like, no, I didn't want to be a king. These are the things, but Bali is just mad, so he's not willing to listen to any explanation. And so Sugriva just runs away. And runs away for his life, even without worrying about what will happen to his family. He leaves even his wife behind. and then he goes away. And then, of course, there is some curse given to Vali, which that's why he cannot go onto that Rishyamukh mountain. And that's the only place he can be safe. And that's where Sugriva goes, along with his few close advisors. And Hanuman is one of them. And then it's kind of complete now that Sugriva's story has come, just to kind of add some more details to that. When Sita was kidnapped, it is said that she was, when Ravana was taking her through that Pushpak, right? Yeah, that also Ravana had kind of confiscated it. It's supposed to be an Indra's aircraft, and he just took it away by force. And so when she was passing over Rishyamukh, so she then dropped some of her ornaments. And so Sugriva has seen this kidnapping thing occurred, and he finds those ornaments, but he just keeps quiet because he said, I don't want to get into anyone's bad books. He doesn't say anything. And then later, when Ram and Lakshman now are coming to Rishyamukh to see Sugriva, he's afraid that these two people have come, strangers. And so he asks Hanuman to go and just find out. Hanuman's kind of like a spy. Find out who these strangers are. Am I at risk again? Maybe Vali has sent these two unknown figures. And that is the first meeting between Hanuman and Ram. So Hanuman comes dressed as a Brahmin. He is also disguised. And then so on. There is a very interesting conversation that occurs. And of course, Ram knows everything. He knows who he is. So it doesn't, he's acting like some Brahmin priest. It doesn't really work. Anyway, so then he takes them up to the mountain. They tell them that Shabri had directed them to her and asked Sugriva to help. And that time, Sugriva shows that these are the ornaments that when Sita was being taken. And Lakshman, Rama's younger brother, is considered an incarnation of Agni. And that's why he's very short-tempered. He can be very brave, very loyal, fiercely devoted to his brother. And he could just get mad very quickly. And so Lakshman is so mad that you saw before your eyes that Sita Devi was being kidnapped. You did nothing about it. There was at least that bird Jatayu. He was much weaker, but he's nevertheless put up some fight. And in the course, of course, his wings were clipped. And so Lakshman was able to understand that, but he just said how coward you are. And then he then tells Rama, this is a bad idea to seek alliance with Sugriv because he is a total coward. And then that's the kind of a question that then later on come why Rama made befriended Sugriv. And later when after Vali was killed and before his death, Vali also brings this up and says, if your goal was to rescue Sita from Ravan, then I was a better ally. I had defeated Ravan before. You could have come to me, and so on. And so there is lots of stories connected there. So Hanuman, let's stick with Hanuman for a while. Among the many incidents that are there, and there are hundreds of them, what really I find instructive and interesting are two or three things. One thing is, of course, when they finally go southward, they know that is in that direction Sita Devi was taken, and then of course they reach the ocean. And what do you do now? There's this ocean, and they know that Sita was taken across the ocean to Sri Lanka. And they all then go to Hanuman and say, you need to go. And Hanuman is like, what are you joking? And like, how can you go leap across this? And then in Ramayana we read that Jambavan was this big bear in the army, part of the army, then goes to Hanuman and says, yes, you can do it. And Hanuman says, no, I can't. And then Jambavan then reminds him, remember, you did this when you were a little child, you did this, kind of refreshes his memory about what he has done. And then if you have seen even the TV version of the Ramayana, you can see that he just grows big, and then Jai Shri Ram, he says, and then leaps across the ocean. So there are several things important here. And that is, we face challenges also. We may not have to leap across an ocean, but we do. And oftentimes we might feel, oh, this is impossible, I can't deal with it. I won't be able to do it. And that's when Vedanta really helps. It says all the strength we want, all the courage we need, all the wisdom we need to deal with challenges is already within us. And if I can manifest it, if God sends problems, God sends also a solution to every problem. And so from this Hanuman story, we know that if we can reach to the depths of our being, all the problems have a solution. And we have the potentiality of conquering any challenge that we may meet in life. There's another one incident connected with that whole episode about going across. And then you know that you've heard and read how Hanuman then goes there in Sri Lanka and is able to meet with Sita. There are again lots of incidents there. And by the way, this is funny. This is not a part of Ramayana. But then someone asked, like, what is Hanuman's identity? And then again, take it in a light vein. There is no aspersions cast on anybody. And then someone said, well, Hanuman was probably a Muslim. Mm-hmm. And this was way before Islam even came. So this, as I said, it's only a story. And so they said, how come you can say Hanuman is a Muslim? And they said, but look at his name. There is Suleiman and all these different names are there. So by the name, it just feels as if he is Muslim. And then different reasons are given to, so no, he is not this, he's not this, he's not this. And then finally someone said, oh, he probably is a Sardarji. I said, why do you think it's a Sardarji? Then he's, and then the story goes on to say, well, first of all, he agrees to go and meet Sita. He's having no idea how Sita looks. How is he able to even find out who she is? And then after going there, he is so mad that the Sita has been locked up there. So he, in that anger, he wants to burn the whole Lanka, the entire kingdom. In order to burn Lanka, he first sets fire to his own tail. Anyway, so this was kind of less silly stories that we had heard when we were children. But Sri Ramakrishna mentions about this, that sometimes that even Hanuman, who is considered Buddhimatam Varishtha, is a tremendous intellect, even when he becomes so angry that he can even momentarily forget the right or the sense of what is the right thing to be done. And so he sets fire to Lanka. And then he remembers, but Sita is there in the Lanka, so she will be affected also. Again, that has a message for us. There are occasions in life when we can get very angry, very upset. And in that state of anger, it's difficult to, or it's not advisable to take any decisions, because we'll take decisions in that state which we'll come to regret. And therefore, especially if you want to take any major decisions or even minor decisions for that matter, it's good to be centered, to be calm, because in a state of, I mean, we'll still make mistakes, but we'll make fewer mistakes if we take any decision with a calm and peaceful mind. So when Hanuman comes back, and then they decide that they need to build a bridge to go across, because not everyone like Hanuman can jump across the ocean. And of course the technology then must have been very rudimentary, so they depended on the laws there. And so all these monkeys in the Vanar Sena, as they call them, they will lift up these huge rocks and say Jai Shri Ram and put it in water, and it started floating, kind of defying all laws of physics. Even Ram was surprised. He was like, this is not what's supposed to happen. And Ram was said, oh, this is the part of my name. But still, how can it go against all laws of physics? And so Ram wanted to check himself. And he was kind of feeling shy to do it in front of everybody. So then he goes to that little remote part of that beach and takes a small little stone in his hand. And Ram himself then just said, Jai Shri Ram, and puts that stone, and that stone sinks. And then Rama is so depressed. Ram thinks that, oh, these monkeys have greater faith in my name. I myself don't have enough faith. And this stone couldn't float when I threw it. And he thought, at least nobody has seen this disaster. But luckily, of course, Hanuman was always behind him. So Hanuman has noticed it. And so Ram then says, see what has happened. And so then Hanuman tells Ram, no, what has happened is exactly what was meant to happen. He said, as long as the stone was in your hand, it was safe. When it left your hand, what could it do but sink? And that is the message for us. That spiritually speaking, it's possible to not have any faith in God, faith in religion, and maybe become a big success in life, in the world. But spiritually speaking, as long as we have faith and hold on to this, the deeper reality behind this whole creation, then we are safe. The moment we try to let go of that, touch with that infinite being, that infinite reality, and try to strike out on our own, it might seem as if we are attaining some success in life. But in the long run, we'll find there's nothing that has remained. But that's the nature of the world. Swami Brahmananda, great disciple of Ramakrishna, said that you give everything to the world and the world will just suck it out of you and then leave you depleted. But you give something to God, give something to the divine, and you will be fulfilled. And that's what many people have found. They have done wonders, they have done great things in the world, helped a lot of people. But if all of this has been done without a thought of the truth and the reality and the supreme being beyond, then everything will ultimately slip away. Everything is perishable. Everything goes away. The only thing that doesn't go away, that will remain with us, that last moment when we encounter death, that would be holding on to God, holding on to the divine. Whichever way we think of God, I'm not just saying there is only one way to think about it, but there is a truth, there is a reality beyond our own little existence. Unless we are aware of it and try to hold on to it, nothing will remain. And so all of the spiritual practices we do, the final test really is about that last moment when we have to leave everything and go away. How do I meet that last moment? And there is this Upanishad called the Kathopanishad with this young boy named Nachiketa, and he is meeting with death. And so there are many different stories about the ultimate test of one's spiritual life. It's not about how many visions I have seen and how much japa I do daily and how many lectures I have read and listened and how many books I have read. All that is good. But the ultimate test would be how I meet the last moment of my life. That's where everything will be final test will occur. And so lots of stories connected with Hanuman in Ramayana. But now let's kind of go back a little bit and go back to that incident when Rama is first told that you have to go for 14 years in exile. And as I mentioned yesterday, Rama was very happy that this was the situation. Then Sita comes and tells Rama, if you're going, I'm coming with you. Now, according to the order of Dashrath, only Rama was asked to go, not his whole family. And so when Sita Devi said, I'm coming with you, many Ramayanas mention that he said, no, you are not accustomed to life in forest. Which doesn't make sense because like Rama wasn't accustomed either. But he says, no, you should stay here. I think, I'm not sure, but I haven't read it, but I think it's a Telugu version or some version of Ramayana. When Rama says, no, you should stay here, I will go and then after 14 years we can meet again. Sita says, in which Ramayana it is written that Rama goes alone to the forest and Sita stays back. Again, if you ask Tulsidas, he will say that it's a mistake to think that Rama was born only once. That in every cycle, every kalpa, Rama avatar occurs. And so this story has happened over and over and over again. And so Sita Devi says she's going to accompany. She just said, nothing doing, I'm coming with you. And then Lakshman, the younger brother, he says, I'm coming with you too. And Lakshman then, first of all, Lakshman is so mad. Again, that's one of the characteristics. He is the incarnation of Agni. And so he tells Ram that this, our father is in his old age, he's gone crazy. And the best way is I will go and put him in prison. And you should be coronated, you should be our king. And Rama pacifies him, so just cool down. This is not the right thing to do. Then Lakshman says, you won't allow me to do that, then I'm coming with you to the forest. I cannot let you go alone there. And so then Lakshman says, let me go and tell my mother, the very least I can do. Of course, he by that time is so mad with his father, he doesn't want to have anything to deal with. So these rebellious children, it's not a new phenomenon. You can find it through everything. And so he then says, let me go and tell my mother about it. Now Sumitra, Lakshman's mother, in Ramayana, she is an embodiment of knowledge. She's a very enlightened mother. So when Lakshman is going towards his mother's room, and kind of sometimes when we have some important thing to do or an interview to give or some important appointment, we kind of replay the conversation in the mind. This is what I'm going to say, and this is what the other people might say, and this is what I'll say. So he was kind of replaying what he's going to tell his mother. And then, of course, inevitably, the mother is going to say, my child, don't go to the forest. And how he'll try to convince her. All he's kind of replaying that scenario in his mind. And then finally, he goes to his mother's room and tells his mother, Mother, I'm going to the forest with Rama. And his mother doesn't stop him. She doesn't say, don't go. But she gives him an important advice. And in Valmiki's Ramayana, it's beautifully put. So this is what Sumitra tells Lakshmana. She says, Ramam Dasharatham Vidhi, Mam Vidhi Janakatmajam, Ayodhyam Atavim Vidhi, Gacchatat Yatha Sukham. What it means is this: Ramam Dasharatham Vidhi. Up to this point, Sumitra tells Lakshman, you have looked upon Dasharath as your father. But no, when you are in forest, your real father is Rama. That Mam Vidhi Janakatmajam. You have looked upon me as your mother, but know that your real mother is Sita Devi. In a kind of a relative sense, in a worldly way, Rama is only his older brother. Sita is his sister-in-law. But what mother says is no. That's the wrong way to look at it. When you're in the forest, Rama is your father. Sita is your mother. Ayodhyam Atavim Vidhi. Atavi means a forest. So he says, Ayodhya, look upon the forest as Ayodhya. So long you saw Ayodhya as your home. That's the city you live in. Now when you go to the forest, because it's going to be very different, obviously. These were from princes in a noble family, had all the living in palatial places. Now in a forest, it was a completely different lifestyle. And of course, the two cannot be considered same. And his mother is telling Lakshman, look upon the forest as Ayodhya. That's your home. Gaccha tata, go my child, yatha sukham, with joy in your heart. Now, it's a powerful, just one verse, very powerful. It's a great lesson for all of us. And that is, if we believe in the idea of rebirth or reincarnation, then clearly, every time we are born, we have a set of parents. And even if we are reborn, we have a different set of parents in every birth. So the parents we have now are not the parents we will have if we are born again. They were not our parents in the last birth. But God as Father, God as Mother is an eternal relationship. So Rama as father, Sita Devi as mother, that doesn't change life after life. And so that's something helpful to remember. In the Upanishad, it is said, Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava. Look upon your mother as God, look upon your father as God. The idea is, insofar as our parents embody and are able to reflect that fatherhood of the divine, the motherhood of the divine, they deserve all our respect. And so it's a great responsibility on both, on parents as well, that if we have to be parents in the true sense of the term, then in some form, I have to embody in my life, aspire at least, struggle to cultivate the kind of qualities Rama had, the kind of qualities Sita had. Because only to the extent I am able to cultivate and embody those qualities in my life, I will deserve the respect and love of my children. Because the eternal parent is Rama, the eternal mother is Sita. And what is a forest? Normally we think of forest as a place where there are wild animals. And there is violence and nothing very peaceful and harmonious in a forest. And what Sumitra is telling Lakshman is now what you thought was Ayodhya is filled with people like Manthara and others. So Ayodhya has become like a forest now. while the forest where you're going to has become Ayodhya because Rama is there. So Ayodhya is not a place. Ayodhya is where Rama is. And if Rama is going to the forest, that is Ayodhya. And if Rama is in my heart, then Ayodhya is in my heart. Which is why something what we were saying yesterday, it's possible then to go physically to this place called Ayodhya and not necessarily, some people, if Rama is in their heart, they go to Ayodhya, they will derive great benefit from it. But if we just go out of curiosity, or this big temple has occurred, and I want to go and see it, I want to take some pictures, put it in my album, share it with my friends, that's not necessarily going to help spiritually. It's so much better that you could be in any corner of the world. You could be sitting here in Pittsburgh with praying to Rama and Sita in the heart. And your Ayodhya will come here, right here. And so that's what Sumitra is telling Lakshmana. That now that Rama is going to forest, that is Ayodhya. And go, my child, go. And again, that's a message that resonates with us. That we don't have to physically necessarily go from place to place. That if I want to find God, God is not just located in one specific place or one. God is right in my heart. The truth has to be found within. So then, of course, they go to the forest, Ram, Lakshman, and Sita. There is another one very delightful incident that comes up when they had to cross the river to go. And so there is this boatman there, and when he comes to know that this is Ram doing it, he refuses to take him. He says, I can't take you. Now there is a backstory to this. So this is called Ahalya. There is Ahalya was, what was her husband name? The Rishi? Gautam Rishi, yes. And so there is this kind of, as I said, there are so many of these backstories to each of these things. So Ahalya has been cursed for an indiscretion that occurred in her life, that she will become a rock. And then only at some point, Rama will pass by that. And then when his feet will touch that rock, she will regain her form back again. And so when Rama was wandering in forest, searching for Sita, and then his feet touch that rock, and she regains her form, seeks his forgiveness, and so on. So this story, there were no newspapers then, but somehow it had spread everywhere. Everyone had heard about it. So this boatman has heard that Rama's feet, the rock was turned into this Ahalya. And so he's afraid now if he takes him in that boat. And of course, if Rama has to get into that boat, his feet are going to touch that boat. What if this boat disappears and some princess or somebody comes from that? And then his boatman said, this is my only livelihood. And so please find some other boat to go to. It's a very delightful little incident. Eventually he does, of course, take him in the boat. And so Ram and Lakshmana go to the forest. And there, among the things there's another one very interesting thing that occurs is Bharat, who returns from his maternal grandparents' home, finds this whole drama. He had no idea what was going on. By the time he has returned, Ram, Lakshman, Sita, they have already gone to the forest. And he's furious. He loves Ram. He wants his older brother to be the king. He goes and argues with his parents, with Kaikeyi and Dashrath. What nonsense is going on here? What are you doing? And then they tell him, they quote to him the scriptures, what I quoted earlier, the Matrudevo Bhava, Pitrudevo Bhava, that's what the Vedas say. And so you have to obey your parents. And so, Bharat also has studied the scriptures, so he knows what is meant. And so Bharat then tells his parents, of course the scriptures are right. I have to obey my parents. But who are my parents? Not you. I have had parents like you. Every birth I have had parents like you. My real father is Ram. My real mother is Sita. I will obey them. What they tell me to do, I will do. And so, and Bharat, against all this, uh, the wishes of Dashrath and Kaikeyi, he said, I'm going to go to the forest to bring Rama back. And so he starts going to the forest. And then coming back to what's happening in the forest here, Lakshman, as soon as this message reaches him, Bharat is coming, he is again gets very mad because he thinks, oh, this Bharat now, my father did like that, and now this Bharat, he's not satisfied with Ram going to the forest. He's just coming with this big army that he wants to kill us all. So that after 14 years also he wouldn't have to return the kingdom. And so he's getting ready for a fight. Again, Rama pacifies him and says, no, cool down. Because Rama, of course, knows everything what's going to happen. So he says, no, 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 no. Just wait and see what happens. So Bharat, in the meantime, we read in Ramayana that when he reaches a certain point, then he hears from the people there that at this point Rama had removed all his princely clothes and had dressed himself as the hermit because he has to stay in the forest for the next 14 years. And so Bharat says, if that's what he did, I'm also going to do that. And then they said that beyond this point, Rama had walked barefoot. He didn't even have shoes on. And so Bharat says, I'm also going to do that. And then he starts walking barefoot deep inside the forest to bring Rama back. And after some time, because they were princes and they were not accustomed to going barefoot, and so the blood starts coming from the soles of his feet, and it's extremely painful. And then Bharat starts crying, and then people think, oh, this has been too painful for this young prince. He can't bear the pain, and so they ask him, what happened? What happened? And the pain is not because he is feeling that the thorns and the pointed stones. He says, it's on this road, the same path that Rama and Sita have gone before me, and how much they must have suffered. So the tears he's shedding is not for his own suffering, that this injustice that has occurred, what his parents have done, and because of which Rama is suffering. So he's crying, and then they pacify him, and then he starts walking. Then they reach a stretch of the forest when there are no thorns. Everything is a perfect road. And then Bharat starts crying even more. He says, now what happened? Now what's the problem? You see, this is the way a bhakta thinks. There's a lot. It's they're interesting stories, but if you look deeply into it, we can see what is the message I get from it. How does a bhakta's mind work? So the reason now, when the road is very clean and no thorns, no nothing, Bharata is crying because then Bharata says, Rama knew I was going to come by this path. And so that I shouldn't be hurt, he cleaned the path for me. He cleared the path for me. Again, how much trouble. So that's the eyes of love, the mind of love. Sri Ramakrishna says, when the heart is filled with this highest love, we can almost develop a new set of senses. With these eyes, we can see the material things around us. But the eye of love, what we will see will be very different. With these ears, we can hear these material sounds around us. But with these ears, the sense of hearing filled with love, perhaps we can hear the beautiful melodious flute which Krishna is playing. We might hear very different things. So Sri Ramakrishna says, through that bhakti, through that devotion, we develop a very different set of senses. And that's what we see in Bharata's life. How a bhakta will think. And so we have to then, it's helpful that the different experiences we have in life, some are just the gut reactions that we have. based on our own samskaras and our own past ways of thinking. But it's helpful to stop and say, how would Bharat would have reacted to this? Think of the ideals in your life, that even Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Swamiji, or Krishna, or Rama, or Buddha, whoever you see as a role model, as an exemplar. And that's the advantage of reading the lives of the biographies of these great ones. Because we then get to see the different challenges that they faced in life. How did they react to it? And if something similar happens in my life, how I react to it? What is the difference? And can I consciously try to react and face the situations the way Bharat would have done, or the way Rama would have done, and so on. So that's something that can be a part of our spiritual practice. Spiritual living is more than simply doing a little bit of japa in the morning and a little bit of japa in the evening. Holy Mother says that these Vedic rishis, they did strong austerities and meditation for hundreds of years when they realized God. And we do a few minutes in the morning and a few minutes in the evening, then you say, oh, darshan hoyni. I haven't had any moksha, nothing has happened. Well, you can't have moksha on the cheap like that. You see, it's simple law that we can get out of a system only what we have put into it. If you put a little bit, you will get a little bit. Now, if I want this highest prize of moksha, the ultimate freedom, freedom from all suffering, the supreme bliss, there is a cost to that. It can't be done as a just something on the like a part-time job. It's not. Spiritual life is a full-time thing. It's something that there is no holidays in spiritual life. And one might say, well, how can I then? I've got so many other things to attend to. And so we will look at that after Arati. That spiritual life is not so much about doing, but about being. Doing requires certain time, requires some investment of energy. But being, now, we are human beings. Now, I can't say, it's so much. I have to be a human being and also have to do grocery. I want to do so much work. No, I can be a human being and I can do everything. My being human being doesn't conflict with my duties and responsibilities. In the same way, why should being a divine being, being a spiritual being, conflict with any of the other duties and responsibilities? So I can continue to do what I'm doing, but just being someone who I truly am, rather than this very limited personality that we have developed over not just few years, but over God knows how many lives. So we'll take a look at some of these after Aarti today. So it's not time for Aarti.
7 o'clock.
Oh, 7 o'clock.
We can
I was
take a-
looking at the clock thinking it's 6:30. It was 7 o'clock.
7.
Okay, so we still have time. So then let's continue with the doing and being. So that's an important change that we need to bring about in our ways of thinking. Because a lot of time people think that if I have to be spiritual, what are the things I need to do? And of course, people will often say, well, read this book, listen to this lecture, do some prayer, do some meditation, and do some singing, and so on. There are many different kind of spiritual activities. Go on a pilgrimage, visit the mandir, go to the temple, and so on. Now, all that is true, all that is important, all that is helpful, definitely. But all of those things do require some investment of time. And that's the kind of a dilemma that gets set up in our lives about how much time should I give to spiritual life? How much time should I give to my work life? And that's because we have limited spiritual life to a set of activities to be done. But what is important, ultimately what matters is who we are, not so much of what we do. And in fact, um, Karl Marx, it would have been dangerous to quote Karl Marx in the 1950s and 60s in this country. Um, so clearly, his political ideology has failed, and that's that. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't a person who had found some insights. So, and that's sometimes the mistake that sometimes we can do. They say throwing the baby with the bathwater. That if someone has failed, then nothing can be good in that person, which is not true. So, it's not like I'm advising you to read Karl Marx or anything. But but in one place he says something which is actually quite profound. And he says, the more you have, the less you are. Now, of course, he applies it in a very material context with all the material possessions and all of that. Um, but I think that's something important, that who I am is very different, should be different from what I have or what I do. But if we look at life in general, how do we define people? A lot of time we just define people by what they do. You're a doctor, you are a lawyer, you are this, you are that. So our definition of a person in terms of what they do, and about even self-definition, how do I see myself, who I am, of what I do, or what I have. Oh, this person is very wealthy, so a lot of property. This person is very poor, or this person is this. So it's so common to think about people in terms of what they have or what they do. And to some extent, we can say, because that is a little bit quantifiable, that is something visible of what a person does, not what a person has. But what a person is really the core of our identity. But that's something only we know. People judge us from how we appear externally. And that's why most people tend to be careful, especially when they're going out to meet their friends or going to a party or going for an interview or wherever. How do they come across as? And that's why there are mirrors, and people look at the mirror and see. So, I mean, when you look at the mirror, who are we seeing? Mr. Well, I'm the immediate will be, I'm seeing myself. But am I seeing myself? I'm just, first of all, I'm not even seeing my total self, not even the physical self. If I stand before a mirror, I can only see what the side of me that's facing the mirror. The mirror can't show what's at the back. But more than that, a mirror can't show my mind, what kind of thoughts are going on in my mind. I'm not just this physical self with bones and bloods and all of that. And so a mirror gives us very limited information about ourselves. But at least we think we know what's going on in our minds. And what we think also is that it's enough if I present myself to the world only those things which they can see. And the rest, whatever's in my mind, only I know and others need not know about it. It's a little bit like in our homes. Not everybody who comes to home, you kind of give them a tour of the entire home. Of course, if they're a part of family, then of course they can pretty much go anywhere. But otherwise, most visitors, we have a living room or at the most a dining place, we take them, and we generally keep those things very clean because that's where others are going to come and then judge how the home is. But we generally don't allow everyone to come and look at my basement or my garage. But those are as much a part of my home. And so who I am as a person is not simply how I come across to the people outside. But the tragedy is that many of us, because there is so much work in cleaning up the garage or the basement, ourselves don't go there much because we'll know there's so much work to be done, or it may be not a very pleasant place to be, or maybe there is not enough place even for you to walk into it. And that's the reason in Vedanta, and clearly in Ramayana and many places as well, there is the emphasis of get to know yourself first. Who are you? And that's why spiritual life is primarily about being myself, my true self. And before I know the Atman, before I know, because everyone immediately wants to jump to the Atman or Nirvikal Samadhi. That's too much. That's almost like jumping across the ocean. But then I have to become like Hanuman to get that. So even before we do that, it's helpful to understand us as just human beings, who I am as a human being, with all my strengths and my weaknesses. And every person has certain skills and has certain drawbacks. That's true with everyone. But can I look at myself objectively? You see, I think a lot of time we are better at judging other people than judging ourselves. Because other people are objects of our perception. But judging ourselves becomes difficult because it's difficult to objectify oneself. And that was sometimes that people might go to a therapist or something to just say, because that person, then to that person I'm an object. And you might have heard the story about how sometimes people have these complexes, superiority complex or an inferiority complex. And so one person felt whether he was suffering from an inferiority complex. So he had a series of tests done. And then finally he went to the person who had administered the tests and said, have the results come? And then he was told, yes, I have good news for you, that you are not suffering from inferiority complex. You are inferior. Now that knowledge that I'm inferior actually is already a good thing to know. Because if I know that, then I will strive to overcome that. But if I don't know it, then I will be in my own la la land thinking I am someone great. And that doesn't help. So knowing oneself is very important. To see nowadays, of course, because everyone has GPS, you don't need to know where you are. The GPS itself will tell you where you are. And then you at least need to know where you want to go. And the GPS will then show you the best route to go there. But not too long ago, some of us who are older here know that there was a time when there was no GPS. You have to remember there these big maps, because long drives you needed. Now, if you find yourself somewhere, you just can't find which road to take. First of all, you need to know where you are in that map. Then you need to know where you want to go, and then you see the best road to take there. In a spiritual life, we sometimes read a lot about Brahman and God and the infinite reality and the nature of that reality. So, depending on which books we read and how much we know, we have a fairly, even if hazy idea about where I want to go. But not probably enough to know where I am now. And so, in the beginning at least, when we begin our meditation, we might say that I'm meditating on God. But in the early stages, it's not about meeting God or seeing God. Early stage is just meeting oneself. Because when we try to meditate, we try to shut out the world, close our eyes and not have any conversation during that time. That time, of course, most of us then we're told to look in the heart, and of course, we just see just darkness. When the only person there is just myself. And people then say, oh, I'm not able to meditate. No, of course. It's not, yes, I'm not seeing God, but I have an opportunity to know myself. And throughout the day, if I'm so busy dealing with other people, dealing with this and that, that is great. But all of these things keep me away from the chance to meet myself, to know myself. So prayer and meditation, even before we know God and meditate on God, gives me a chance to meet me, who I am. And that's why I sometimes say, and that's why Sri Ramakrishna also said, that go into solitude now and then. And that's the advantage of going into solitude, because that gives us an opportunity to meet ourselves. Now, I don't know whether I mentioned this before, that if we if we go into solitude and then switch off your phone, switch off your television, switch off all of that, and then just be with yourself with no distractions of any kind. Not many people can just remain with themselves for a long time and then they get bored. But that really means that my own company is very boring. I can't stand myself. I can't stand my own. And if I'm bored, then what right have I to expect that other people are going to enjoy my company? So I think the first thing as a spiritual seeker we need is an ability to be in solitude now and then, see how we feel, get to know ourselves. Then we have a better chance to understand more about the purpose of life, the goal of life, and God and so on. That will come later. But first we need to know where we are. And when we read these incidents from the Ramayana, that gives us a chance, looking at these different characters, not just Rama and Sita, but also Bharat and Hanuman. All of these are exemplars of certain characteristics, certain qualities. Therefore, Bharat in Ramayana is seen as an ideal devotee, an ideal bhakta. What kind of qualities I need to have to be a true bhakta? Hanuman is an embodiment of Shraddha, Vishwas. And it is that deep faith that Hanuman had that gave him this power to leap across the ocean, go there. That's the power of faith, power of Shraddha. And so if you kind of go deep into it, we'll find each of these characters stands for certain qualities essential for spiritual life. And that is why Tulsidasa's Ramayana, we call it Tulsi Manas. Manas is the mind. So the entire story of Rama can be seen as being replayed in the psychological plane. That these different qualities and characteristics. And if we look at it from that standpoint, there is so much more we can get out of the Ramayana story. So we have another about 10 minutes, but if you have any thoughts or comments or questions about what I have said so far, feel free to.
So from yesterday, so I was looking for an ideal time to be with myself, and I wake up really early. So I thought, okay, I'm going to spend time, knowing who I am. That occurs only for a short time before I'm making list of things to do for the day. Right? It's hard to apply brakes and not get focused on immediate tasks and things to do.
Yeah, that's true. So therefore, I think training of the mind is not very different from training of a pet. If you have a dog or cat at home, we know that when you first get a pet, you have to spend some time with the pet, training the pet. And if your dog or cat is trained well, then it can bring, it's an endless joy. How many of you have dogs at home? Okay. So if you know that if you train it well, it can bring so much joy. On the other hand, if you don't give any training, then the same pet can become so much of a nuisance. So our mind is a little bit like the pet. And it's possible that maybe I haven't trained this pet much. And that's why the mind doesn't want to stay in one place. If you have a trained dog, just sit, the dog will sit there, not move. And in the time of meditation, we tell our mind, now sit and think of God, and it just goes here and there. And so we know, and those who are trainers, they know you need a lot of patience. Just getting upset and angry doesn't solve the problem. And so similarly, we need to have a lot of patience with the mind. That's the question Arjuna brings up in Gita. He tells Krishna that, this mind, it's just like we cannot close the wind, control the wind. We cannot control the mind. And Krishna agrees. Krishna says, yeah, you're right. Asamshayam mahabaho durnigraham palam. The mind is, yes, without doubt, difficult to control. But then he says, but there is a way to discipline the mind. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha griyate. Through practice and through non-attachment. So if I can keep on practicing, and non-attachment means, you see, if you are, think about it this way, if you are crossing a river over a very narrow bridge, which is almost on the point of breaking, but you have to go across, and you are right in the middle of that bridge, you know that every step is important. One wrong step and you are just going to be crashed. Now at that point, no one has problem with concentration. No one that time says, oh, I'm thinking of something else. You won't, because you know the consequences. You know that if you don't pay attention to that, it would mean death. That we don't feel when we are meditating. We say, oh, meditation, it just seems like a kind of an interesting thing to do. But we see that, oh, even if I don't think of God, if I think of something else that time, nothing much has changed. I'm okay. And that's the problem. How important do I think this meditation activity is? Is it something optional? Or is it as important as me crossing that bridge? So first is recognizing the importance of the practice. And the second thing is, how much do we meditate really? If you just look at, even when we sit, even make the resolve to meditate or pray, maybe a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour. Most people probably do it less than that. So we have to ask ourselves, yes, if I'm making lists or if I'm thinking of something, is it so important that it cannot wait even for 10 minutes? Is it something, I'm sure that there could be situations in life when something needs to be done immediately. And of course we should do them. But a lot of distractions that we have in meditation are things that can wait. They are not so urgent. So if we can, at the time of when you sit for prayer or meditation, if you can sit with this firm resolve that for the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes, nothing in life is more important to me than the sound of my mantra. Nothing, no other image or form is important to me than the form of my Ishta. If I can tell myself that and hold on to that, I may have a better chance of success. Because the mind is not trained, the mind will still want to go. But making that firm resolve, sankalpa, is important in the beginning. and not get discouraged by failure. It's just making a good intentions are not often enough. There has to be enough power, enough energy in what we do. And that power comes not by going to a gym. Yeah, going to a gym is great, you can build up good biceps. But the power to keep the mind focused on God, that doesn't come by going to a gym. That comes through an honest life. If I've if I have a clear conscience, if I've lived according to dharma, with honesty, truthfulness, not deceiving anybody, being kind, loving, with no hatred, no anger, no jealousy, then that power I have, that power builds my willpower. And if that willpower, that will be able to discipline the mind. But if I allow these parts of the mind to get dissipated with a reckless way of living and thinking, then of course we are not going to be able to concentrate during meditation. So it's a long project. We have to be patient. It can take days, weeks, months, even years. But there is a Chinese proverb which says, when the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So take a step and take the second step, take the third step. That's what we'll have to do.
Swamiji, can I make an observation?
Mhm.
You talked about the mind and the pet, and having a pet. It dawned that when I'm taking her for a walk.
We'll speak a little loudly so everyone can hear.
So it dawned that when I'm taking her for a walk, and if the leash is loose, and though she's trained to stay, anything like a squirrel or bunny, she see in her attention. If I don't have the rein in my hand, that I'm not paying attention, she would take off. And so this analogy that you had shared about pet and mind was I just like that. I guess that holding is attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for the spiritual life and to have bhakti or devotion, faith is a crucial thing. But rational mind contradicts the faith. Is one born with faith or one develops faith?
Well, faith is already present in a seed form in the heart of all of us. And that faith gets kind of covered or is not manifested through cynicism and through the kind of influences and experiences we have had. But I don't think faith contradicts rationality. I think sometimes we make too big a deal about rational this thing, and most people, and this research has shown that people like to think they are rational, but most decisions people take are not taken rationally. In fact, emotions and feelings are a much more powerful force in most people. And so a lot of times, people say it's a gut feeling. You want to buy something or you want to go somewhere, and it instinctively, that time people are not reasoning it out. They say, oh, I want to do this, I want to get this. But then, after making that decision or after being predisposed to doing or thinking or getting something, then we start to find a reason to take us toward that decision which has already been made. And then we can change the chronology of it and think, I first thought about it in every way and then reach that decision. But actually that decision has already been taken. There's something we instinctively feel I should or shouldn't do. So I'm not against being rational. I think it's a great thing. Being logical is a great thing. But not to imagine. In fact, human beings are very irrational in many ways. And that's why, there's whole talk of AI going on now. And AI can never do what human beings do, because an AI will still be guided by an algorithm. It will be still that it has to follow some rules. Human beings may have all the algorithms and all the rules, but in spite of that, they can behave in very irrational ways, which a machine cannot do. So it's good to be have these things in perspective. That we like to think of ourselves as rational, but in actual practice, we may not be as rational as we think we are. It's like most people want to, and somehow there is this popular idea, somehow jnana, knowledge is higher than bhakti, or non-dualism is higher than dualism. There is nowhere, no one ever says that this is higher or this is lower. But because something is higher, we immediately begin to think, then that's for me, because who wants any lower thing? And yeah, so I think we get conditioned by many of the pre-existing notions and ideas that are put around us. And so it's good to sometimes question our assumptions, the way we think and why we think that way. Because otherwise life will go in a very predictable way. And people who succeed are, as they say, those who think outside the box. So it's sometimes good to just pause and say, is there a different way to think? Or is this the only way to think? So we'll stop now. It's time for Arati. Then after Arati, we can continue this. Om Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhu